I'd like to call to order the meeting of the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board for Tuesday, January 21st. I'd like to ask for an approval of the agenda.
So move. Second.
We have an approval, for a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'd like to ask for a approval of the consent agenda for the meeting minutes of the December 17th board meeting and approval of the library expenditures for December 20.
Correction on the minutes. Item 6E should be, it says all personnel, there should be only the director.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a,
You don't have the first.
no, we have a correction.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amended change that Doug brought up?
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial reports.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody thinks that looks good, the second page and the first page of the financial report. With the changes in there, like the new lines for the capital improvement.
That was good.
Okay,
Got a question?
yep,
On the second page, that 3395.95 for the building fund, what was that for? That 3,300 bucks?
that was for the basement, like the, it was
Initial plan?
the architectural fees, yeah.
Was that the second part of the payment, or wasn't there just one payment of like 9,000?
No, they have gone in installments. It's how the architects have been building us. So that's what's left.
Okay, this is the
Yeah.
last installment.
Well, yeah, it's the remaining.
It's the
yeah.
remaining. It's
Okay.
remaining.
Okay. Any questions for Joseph? Okay. If not, we will move on. Public comment. Okay, we will move on. Library Director's Report.
Okay. The winter reading programs are starting. The adult winter reading program has begun and goes through March 6th. And the kids and teens winter reading program will start February 1st and go to March 6th. So the adults can read and enter to win prizes, and the kids will have a book bingo sheet to do, and when they complete that, they will get a coupon for Eaton's Pizza. So we want to thank Eaton's Pizza for contributing to our winter reading program this year. The sprinkler system project, remember the remaining 3 runs of the attic, which are the north, west, and south runs. We did the east run before. Need to be replaced in the near future. I've met with the city administrator on that project, and it will be placed on either the capital improvement project for 21 or 22. He was not sure where it would fit.
Question?
Yes.
If they failed before then, who pays for it?
I'll have to ask that question, because I am not sure.
Okay.
I know when I had talked to Jay on other issues, his comment was, we schedule this in our budget on a going forward project thing, but if something does happen where we have an emergency, we will relook at where the funding will come from.
So
So
they're saying
they would look at funding, yes, and
but
come up
look at
with.
doesn't mean that it will happen.
Again, it depends on what the issue is.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, but they will become actively involved. If we have an issue, we'll make them aware of it and they will That was my discussion with him, and I'm sure that's,
Okay, we have an opportunity to apply for being part of the PLA Inclusive Internship Initiative. And PLA stands for Public Library Association. It's a national organization of all public libraries. This offers a paid summer-long internship to a high school student at their local library. It's a way to get students involved in librarianship and introduce them to the career field. And it also will allow them to practice leadership skills and learn more leadership skills. So the West Bend Library has applied for this. It's a $3,500 grant for that position, as well as trips to Washington, D.C. and Chicago, Illinois for training sessions. One is a pre-session at the beginning of the program, and then one is a post-wrap-up at the end. Those would be paid for by PLA.
Do we have a potential candidate?
Not right now, we don't, but we would, if we get the grant, we would find out March 9th if we could get the grant or not. Then after that, we would, if we do get the grant, then we would post for the position like we would normally for a high school student. And then we would select that person before the first meeting, which is at the end of May. Okay. The Mid-Moraine Municipal Association Legislative Committee panel discussion. The Washington County Librarians were part of a panel discussion for this group, and we talked about the County Library Services Agreement on how Act 420 payments are calculated and distributed. So that was a good information session, and to meet with some local leaders in government to explain to them more how libraries work and function and are funded. And then I just invite you to come and meet with me at any time if you have questions, comments, concerns. I met with Jessie in December, and it was a good meeting, and I was able to answer some questions that she had. So I invite you to do that as well. Statistics.
well, talk about the meetings, the
Oh,
activities.
sure.
Does anybody have any questions about the various meetings that Amy has had during the month of December and beginning of January? I'd asked her to start putting things out there to show what she is doing to communicate with others. And that was one of the things we had set up as a goal for her. Thank you.
The statistics this year, this is the end of the year, so we have December statistics, all but the wireless counts right now. We are up 2.14% in circulation, which is great to see, and our e-circulation has really skyrocketed. You know, we went up over 23% in overdrive downloads, and we almost doubled in Zinio and RB Digital Resources circulation, so that was wonderful to see. Any questions on the stats? Yes, Doug?
Got a few.
Sure, go ahead.
The, this is on, I'm basing this on the second page. So what do you
Yes,
compare
that's what I'm
annual?
looking at, yep.
The patron count, that is cardholders, right?
Patron count is the door count.
Just the door count? Okay. So if I walk in and out of the door 4 or 5 times, I can count 4 or 5, okay.
Usually doesn't happen, but
And
Well, if you
don't,
wanna get up the patron count.
and, no, but then you'd have to check out books too, cause you know, we have the count based on per person, how many
circulation.
books they take
No,
out.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
print it out.
farther down, no.
yeah, the
Farther down,
average
no.
circulation per patron count is farther down.
No, what I'm saying is patron count by itself is in and out of the front door.
Yes,
Correct.
Okay. Total circ statistics, that's just not books, is it?
It's books, DVDs, audiobooks,
Hard copy.
anything that is physical.
Not just books.
Not just books.
Okay, okay. And the new card holders is
Yes.
up,
Yes,
so, and that is totally unrelated to patron count.
correct.
Okay, then, if we look down at transits, is- we've lent less than last year,
Correct.
and we have borrowed more.
Correct.
Is that a reflection of our lower spending on materials?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
It's a good thing the meeting rooms increased, that's great.
Mhm.
And then the children's YA and young adult programs
Mhm.
and the attendance,
Yeah,
there's more programs
smoke programs and less people.
and less people.
It's
So
very strange.
not a good return on dollars spent either. And then, if you look at total programs and total program attendance, we should be, based on these statistics, we should probably be doing more adult programs and fewer children's and young adults.
But one of the things we've charged Amy and the library with is to try and bring in more millennials, young adults.
Well, millennials are adults
Well,
now.
yeah, but
But it,
you're right, I guess millennials are adults. Younger
And-
people,
And I,
18 to 20,
and I believe that more of them are coming to our adult programs too. The millennials are.
the millennials. Okay.
Could just be, demographics, there's less small children right now.
Yeah,
right.
we
I
just
mean,
don't
it
know.
just could be-
Right.
Okay, that's all I had.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Amy on her report, or
Then there's the top requested titles.
Yes.
That is also a little enlightening. 80% of those are movies or games.
DVDs. Mm-hmm. Blu-rays
And
are
a DVD
DVDs.
is a movie or a game, right?
No, it's a
Usually
movie.
it's just
It would be
movies,
strictly a
but-
movie when you put down,
DVDs are movies.
okay,
Yep.
how do you tell games?
Games would actually be video games.
So Blu-ray is also movies.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So are we now becoming a blockbuster?
I don't know.
Kind
Those are
of.
just the most requested things that are out there.
And this was a concern of the original task force years ago. Why are we into the video business as opposed to, books and the rest of the items that the library does?
I think movies are just another form of telling story. And the whole concept of story is to bring about themes within our lives. So I think it's just another way to transmit information. And that's just what people are
Or is it-
flocking toward.
Or is it more that it's cheaper to get a free movie from us than to go pay for it?
Yeah, but that's the
Same with
reason you
books.
buy you get
Um,
books from the library.
right.
It's the same with books.
I think a lot of people are, like, I don't have cable, I have an antenna. So if
Correct.
there's something new, there's a requested thing to new movie out, or some of my neighbors, we go to the library and see if we can get it. Instead of paying
Right,
and
$4.95 on Amazon Prime, because I can stream,
right.
play the Roku, but I don't
one of the things though too to think about, Doug, is because there are so many holds on there, that shows that we aren't
Just buying DVDs.
just buying we're not buying many DVDs, and the ones that we do buy are in a high demand. You know what I mean, as opposed to, we don't see a lot of books out there because we've been trying to rectify when people want books, we'll buy the books, but they're a higher priority than the DVDs.
I have 2 points to add to your
Okay.
query. One is, I just recently, more than 2 days ago, ran a report for my librarians asking for the most checked out items in a 3-year period between 2017 and 2019. Of the top 300, 252 of them, or roughly 84%, were DVDs. And that's the first point. Second point is, you want to take away the DVDs, and you're gonna see a serious drop in circulation. And that's just a fact.
We'll wait till we get to circulation.
Well, DVDs count for circulation.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
right.
count
For
for
circulation.
circulation.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Okay, the relationship between,
The, what?
relationship?
Relationship? Oh, no, before that, I wanted to talk about, the other thing that I've asked Amy to put in there, you can see she's put in her goals and objectives. And that will be a running tabulation that she will keep, providing each month, to help us in her evaluation and seeing what she's actually performing. Okay? Okay. Amy had been asked as a task to do the relationship between library revenue and circulation, and I know the document that is put together doesn't really get into detail, and I had asked her not to do a full detail because as a board, I was looking at, our responsibility is really not to do a training session at a board meeting. If a training session is to be scheduled, it can be scheduled at a different time, not a board meeting.
This wasn't a training session.
It was, no, I'm just saying, it was a request, and I
It was a
don't know.
request, and here's what I wanted to find out. And that didn't answer it. The question was between revenue and circulation. If circulation goes up 1,000, how many more dollars do we get from the county?
It depends on where that 1,000 circulations would have come from. If those circulations came from county members that don't have a library in their municipality, then it would increase our costs from the county, our revenue from the county. If they do not, if they come from city residents or from residents like from the city of Hartford, then they do not count.
Okay, so it depends upon what circulation is from.
Correct.
And how do we track whether it's city or not?
We track that in circulation. We track that for the county because every person has a line that's called a PSTAT, which is a patron status code, and that tells us what municipality they live in.
So, what circulation generates money for the library?
A circulation from a patron that lives in the town of Barton, that lives in the town of Allenton, that lives in the village of
Okay, so now,
Richfield.
say you had 1,000 of those, how many dollars would that generate for us?
It depends on how we compare with the other libraries. It's spelled out in the Washington County Library Services Agreement.
So how do we compare? If we get 1,000 and everybody else gets 1,000, how much more money do we get?
We would
don't.
get no
Well, if
more.
every-
Wouldn't
if-
you
yeah,
get the
all
same amount?
'Cause
circulation
everybody
increases
gets the same.
yeah.
So why do we even consider circulation if we don't get any money out? We had
Because
this big
it-
emphasis on
state-
on
I'm sorry.
circulation as though it relates to money, but it really doesn't.
In some respects it does, and in some respects it doesn't.
Okay, what respect does it?
It does when we go and go out for Act 420 payments, and that would be outside of the county residents who live in a municipality that doesn't have a library.
And how much circulation would we have to increase to get $100 of money?
Again, that would be dependent, because if we would increase by 100, it would be dependent on what the other,
Okay, let's assume the others don't. How
Remain
much do we
stable.
get?
I don't know.
that's a calculation from the county.
It
funding.
depends on how much circulation we get.
Okay, so we don't know how much money we get if we increase our circulation. And if we do increase our circulation, it isn't very meaningful, correct?
Well, our circulation though is part of accumulation of this county for how much money the state provides, like
The county provides.
the
County,
county
not the
provides?
state.
Not the state, the county.
My point being is that we keep talking about circulation as though it is a magic number, and we don't benefit from it financially to any large degree. In other words, if the library board spent all kinds of time increasing circulation, but we would have to do it with Barton and other places to get any money. Right?
We
This
would
is
have to
not
have
a-
the circulation come from those areas,
Yes.
yes.
What is your point though, Doug?
My point
You're
is
talking about circulation and bringing in money.
Doesn't generate income.
Yes, so,
Increases in circulation.
so what is
Do
the
not.
point? They don't increase it, so
Right.
are you saying we shouldn't track circulation
No,
or
we
it's
can
not
track it.
important?
But you see, as we go further into this, into our minutes, all of a sudden, adding $150,000 for the basement is gonna help increase circulation.
Okay, that, we'll talk about that when
Right.
we get
But
to
you-
that.
No, you asked me.
I did, because I
So-
didn't know where you're coming.
Okay, and I just answered
Circulation
you.
though
I
is,
just answered you.
is listed though in both the Washington County funding and Act
20.
420. But there is, I can't say specifically, but Chapter 43 does talk about circulation. So there,
Of course, but
there
see-
are other,
We don't know. We can't say that if we increase, we can't tie circulation into funds coming to the library.
Circulation can be also an advocacy tool for that.
I'm asking, I'm asking for money. And you're saying because of if our circulation went up, the city's gonna give us more money because circulation went up, or the county will? That's what advocacy is, isn't it? My only point being is that for years, we have talked about increasing circulation as though it has a financial impact, and it really doesn't. Increasing circulation, I should say. Dwelling on increasing circulation doesn't generate financial rewards to West Bend Community Library. That's all, the only point that I'm trying to make.
But if our
And it's not a training
circulation-
session.
if our circulation dropped, if it went to nothing, why would we even be here?
Right.
What is the mission?
well,
See,
it's
the
a-
mission though
no, and
of
the
the
same-
library is to provide books in circulation. That's part of our mission statement.
I didn't say whether it was gonna go to zero or not. I could say, what if it went to 10 million? My
I-
God, we
I'm-
have money
I'm
coming
just
out of
saying,
our
though-
ears. My only point being is, in our emphasis on increasing circulation is a little bit misplaced. We're not generating funds for it.
True, but if you look at our mission statement states, one of the main purposes is to provide materials and things to the public, and that in turn is circulation. So sometimes circulation can be more than just looked at as a monetary issue.
I don't
that's
think anywhere in our mission statement do we say that we are,
a revenue, or,
right, trying to make money off of people
No,
here.
I'm not gonna dwell on the point. The simple thing I'm just trying to point out is that a lot of emphasis on circulation and increasing it does not generate financial rewards to West Bend Community Memorial Library. That's all I was trying to get accomplished.
Sure.
okay,
Not as a training session, information.
all right.
Okay,
Chris?
I would think it would be easy enough that you can contact the county and just ask, well, how did you come up with the calculation for this payment? I mean, that's
That's
what,
in the library services agreement.
but I'm saying for that specific amount that you're given for that year, you should be able to, they should be able to show you the homework of how they got to that number. And I would think that would answer Doug's question, because I would see the difference in circulation from the year to this year and the difference in the payment and be able
Oh,
to
I
work
see
that
what
out.
you're saying. You could
I
go
don't know if
back
that's
and
what
ask
Doug's looking
them.
for, but you'd be the closest you could get to that information. I
You
would
probably
think.
already have that information,
Yes,
don't
I
you?
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, instead of like, he's kind of asking to project out if we had 100 people come.
Right, how much more?
But there's, instead of saying, of the last 100 people that have come, how much money have we
Yeah.
generated from
Yeah,
that?
and it's very difficult to say.
Right, you gotta look at
Because when you
past
look at the
versus future.
county and how the payments are done, it's done on a percentage. And the percentages are calculated from circulation.
And in relation to the other
And
libraries.
in relation to the other
Yeah,
libraries, yes.
Correct. Yep,
Okay,
yep.
Any other questions? If not, is there anything else, Amy? Oh, the
I don't-
Monarch? No, you've got that later. We will move on to the Library Board President's Report. The only thing I wanted to say is that next month, our meeting, will the report for the state be completed?
Yes.
For the board meeting to review? Okay, I just didn't know when we were having, if the meeting
Yep, that was
fell.
part of my Monarch Library System update, so.
Okay, all righty, thank you. We will move on to number 8, old business Monarch Library System update.
Yep. We did not have a meeting of the Directors Council this month, so we kind of communicated via email as far as information gathering. The Resource Advisory Work Group met on the 16th to discuss the e-magazine subscriptions to RB Digital. I was unable to attend that meeting due to other meetings, so, due to the county meeting, actually. And I'm still waiting for a report from that group. The annual report is due at the end of February, and we will have a document for you to approve at the February meeting. I know the system has been working to pre-fill some of the data in the annual report so that it's a little bit easier for us to check our numbers. And we're hoping that that report will be opened this week so that we can start inputting data. And then the last thing for Monarch, as part of the workforce development initiatives, Monarch Library System is making arrangements for the librarians to attend and visit their workforce development centers in the areas in which they have libraries. So the West Bend tour will be March 6th, and we're going to send at least 3 librarians to that and get more information about our workforce development center. That's all I have.
okay, the system did not have a meeting in December. That's 2 months in a row we didn't meet. And one way of looking at that is that we are maturing. We don't have to meet every month. There weren't any disasters, there weren't any crucial items, and we're meeting again in February. So the positive is that things are moving well within the system.
We will move on to old business B, Library Recreation Center Project Draft Lease Agreement and Funding Agreement.
Okay. Okay, a draft lease is in your packet, and it is, it reflects, an amount of, for rent, and it reflects that Parks Rec and Forestry will take care of the sidewalk shoveling, in the winter time, and they, will also be responsible for janitorial services within the leased space. Are there any questions on the lease agreement right now before? Yeah, I know you guys do, so.
Yeah, who do you want to start with?
Huh?
We both said we do, so.
Okay,
Tim, we'll start
Wow.
on,
So the dollar amount that's in the lease agreement, currently of $450, how is that calculated and based upon what? Is that based upon Rob's
Yes,
belief of what the electrical, HVAC, all that is going to go there? Okay. So then you reference the fact of the park and rec is gonna take care of snow plowing, there's marketing costs, is that somehow, I'm trying to do the math, back to Chris's comment about the county. How is that all calculated in here to take that off? Is that more off the 450? Or where is that all figured into this dollar for dollar?
Well, we didn't figure anything into the payback for what you guys had said that we were supposed to pay back the 50,000.
So you're assuming,
Okay, so,
this assumes there is no payback.
correct. That's what they asked for,
They being,
Parks and Rec.
okay, so this is their,
It was our proposal together, and I thought with the snow removal and the marketing assistance, those two things add up to, well, the snow removal added up to about $5,000 a year. That's what we budget.
no, but, so that, all the snow, your $5,000 budget includes all snow removal,
Snow removal except for the parking lot.
okay? But in the lease, it's defined a little differently, and I think a map should be provided
Yes,
and lay out, because I don't know if that's worth 5,000 or if it's worth less than that. That's an assumption that it's 5,000. There's also, did you have more, Tim?
No, you might probably lead in this.
Okay.
I have a feeling that
We're all
our
talking about the
questions
same
are
thing. Yeah.
similar at some point. So,
There's nothing in here about security.
okay.
Is this gonna be more than a one-year lease? Because this shows the lease going from 2020 to 2021. So I'm assuming it's more than a one-year lease. How long?
Okay,
and I think with that, I have a real hard time with this doing a year-to-year lease. To committing this type of funding to do whatever we do in the basement, this needs to be a long-term
Term.
I
commitment.
thought we were doing 10, for sure.
Let's see,
That
no,
was a number discussed.
Because now they're
but-
assuming there is no 10.
No, no,
This has an assumption that there is no loan. This is an assumption that we're gonna give them another
Well, if-
$50,000. No,
okay,
is that right?
just to get to the 150.
You said there's no payback, so
Right.
this is an assumption there's no loan. Which means they've now asked not for 100, but they're asking us to give 150,000, or a 50% increase in the amount they want us to give. Okay? Then, in this rent here, if we have rent, what's the tax impact for the library?
Well, I see what he's saying. Sure, is it, are we gonna have?
I don't know.
Okay, but
Have we addressed it? Is there a tax impact on the library?
Like an income tax?
No, like you'd have to
Right.
issue like a 1099 when somebody generate over like $600.
If we're renting, that's income.
Yes.
that's internal though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be city to
No.
city,
I'm trying
but
to-
it
If
is
the
a
city,
lease?
if the city rents something out, the city gets income, and the city has to pay a tax on that.
But this
No,
is
we don't.
department to
We don't.
department.
No, we
Yeah,
don't.
the city's a government, they
Yeah,
don't.
I
pay
don't, like,
tax.
I'm gonna use the example, the district used to lease from the city of West Bend. I never in any conversation, again, I'm on this district side of this, do I ever remember the conversation, well, we have to pay tax on whatever that was that we paid.
Okay.
And I'm looking at
That was a
Chris, if you
question.
know any
And
different.
we rent, I mean, down at the village I work for too, we do
So
that.
it's a question.
I've never seen it, but.
Because we do
yeah.
rent of city property right now for our, meeting rooms. We charge $10 for a group to come in and use our meeting rooms.
Right.
We do not pay tax on that.
Okay. And then if we deduct this payment of $450, does that include utilities?
Yes,
And if that includes utilities, we're not getting rent of $450, we're getting, well, whatever this payment is minus utilities. That's what we're
So,
getting back.
so and with that, I read this as we make the assumption that it's gonna cost $450 to operate that space and utilities. There is no rent payment. Basically, this agreement is saying it's a flat dollar, that they're paying us $450 to cover utilities. There's not a dollar per square foot charge or anything else with that.
correct.
Okay.
Oh, you're assuming there's $450 for utilities, there's no rent?
Included.
So we're looking at giving them, they're asking for $150,000 now, and nothing comes back to the library. Is that correct?
We get savings on snow removal
Well, that
and
isn't-
marketing.
That's an assumption. And the marketing, you've only budgeted $2,000, and you're saying we're gonna save 25, how can we save 2,500?
That's what they charge for, it would be, that's what they charge for, ads in their,
But see, that's not costing us anything, and that's not a savings to us.
okay.
With the assumption, the only way I could see it as savings is we spend, or we budget $2,000 or $2,500. We're saying that, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Amy, we would get an ad in that Park and Rec's booklet that comes out, whatever else. We are doing no other marketing outside of that avenue. Then it would be the savings, or it'd be a wash.
It
If
would
we are
be
saying we're no
2,000.
longer, yeah, we're
It
no
would be
longer gonna
2,000.
market, and I know
Okay.
we don't have anything in the daily news, or we don't have anything on the radio. We're purely putting all our marketing money into, that is the only
Well,
place.
that's assuming you're not paying for posters with that marketing money.
Or anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
So that we'd have to be careful to say
Okay.
that that's really a
know.
savings
Okay.
or a wash.
I
It's
understand,
a wash, it's not a savings, so.
I understand,
Okay.
okay.
And then, I do wanna say though, this is a good start.
Okay,
And it's a lot more than we've ever had.
it's a lot of work, yeah.
I do
And then-
agree, though, that it shouldn't be just a one-year lease. We need to have a
Well,
long.
that's what we're saying, these are
Yep.
all.
I said I agree, that it
Oh.
needs to definitely be a long-term lease.
So if we're gonna pay all utilities in this, so this 450 is supposedly supposed to reimburse for the utilities. Okay. We talked about the snow removal, we don't know for sure about that. Property insurance, is that gonna cost us any more? Will our
Should not.
property insurance go up?
Should not.
Should
Because-
or you know?
Michelle is looking into it,
Okay, so we don't know
okay,
yet.
we don't know exactly yet.
Wouldn't the assessed value of the building potentially go up if we do this renovation, which would then increase the property tax?
The property value,
Well, yeah,
So insurance will go up.
yeah.
So there's another
Probably.
cost. Not probably, you'll pay for it. This flipping probably is just spending more money.
okay.
Okay. And then, those are the only questions I have on the budget, because I do have some questions, though, on the advantages that you have written up, but I'll wait for Chris. to
Before
go
we do
ahead.
that, though, yeah, Chris, what, do you have any on the lease?
I think a lot of stuff got covered. So do we, how did you figure out the 450? I know
I
that was asked.
had Rob
but
from building inspection do an estimate on what it would probably be,
Utilities?
yes.
So, go ahead.
So it's gas, electric, water, all that jazz?
Gas, electric, water, yeah,
Yep. And it equals 450, right?
approximately.
So we're
Yeah,
not
so
getting
that's-
anything for rent
So-
at all.
yeah, so that's a
No.
wash.
Yep, you're
Right there.
basically, you're
That's
at a
what they
$0.
were saying.
Yeah,
Not like we're trying to make big money here, but we're at a
Right.
wash
we're
right
at a
now.
wash, so we're not getting anything.
Right,
We're just seeing the
Besides the
depreciation,
savings,
right.
Yeah.
so we're getting nothing.
And so we haven't covered, and I know their space, and I know we can use the space, but again, there's gonna be additional wear and tear to our buildings. However, they're going up and down, if they're using that elevator, there's increased usage there. I think of some of the security things that have been discussed to put in and manage, and from Brad's time or whoever's time to do some of these things. I just feel the 450 number is a little low.
okay,
I do like, I will tell you this, I do like the idea that they cover our snow plowing. The other question I have is, and I cannot remember, we budget for and pay for lawn in the summer, correct?
correct.
So I'm very open to and I actually like the idea of reduce the rent for the other services if you can equal it dollar for dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that long-term because it's something that hits our budget every single year. And in essence, in my mind, I sell it to myself as we're now contracting with Park and Recs instead of whomever.
Right.
As long as we have this long-term deal, that's where I get a little better with the $450 amount to cover the utilities when I know we're actually potentially reducing our costs in other areas. And if we can up that number, I feel a little more comfortable about that by doing year-round. And I don't know what the budget amount is for lawn care and all of that here. But I think those two as a package deal, in essence, sweetens it a little bit for me, that we're taking some long-term pieces. And let's say this is a 10-year deal. For 10 years, we don't need to worry about who's shoveling our sidewalks and who's cutting lawn. I mean, that really puts us in a situation where we don't have to worry about those cost increases or anything else. Now we're literally talking about covering our own utilities, at that point. That's where I see us as a library taking the advantage versus saying, we're gonna charge you $3 a square foot, or $2 a square foot, or $1 a square foot. So that's one of the things I'd like to see.
So in the city, and I say the city because it was Jay and Nick and whoever called me and asked about reapproaching this, I mean, I said the same thing, that I was in favor of 50K as a loan because there's some sort of payback there. So if you weren't gonna do a loan, I wanted to see that payback somewhere in here, whether it's
Yep.
snow plowing or grass or any of that. So I agree, I mean, we started the dialogue, but I think there's more that I would like to see. So I agree with you, Tim.
So Amy, is the savings roughly about 7,000 that's in here?
No, it'd be 5.
Just 5?
Yeah, 5
Okay.
for the snow
For
removal.
the snow.
So do
For the
we
snow.
have any idea of like what we would, like, can we give Amy a ballpark estimate of what we kind of think would be reasonable?
For,
The year? Like
For
a
what?
year?
Like how much savings do we wanna see?
And payback,
And
yeah,
I think part of
right.
this is there's these other costs, Doug brought up, we just talked about insurance, the extra
Right.
wear and tear or some of these other things. To me, that fits in the realm of we're talking about the snow plowing and the marketing. I have no problem saying that, we look at the payback of the 50,000 through lawn services, through the first 5 years of this agreement being, instead of $5,400 a year, it's $7,000 a year, or, a changing schedule over time for them to pay it off. The other side of this is if they don't have the space down here, they're going somewhere else, and it's a lot more money to rent
Right.
somewhere else. We're trying to create the agreement that works for them and for us.
Right.
And I think that's where those additional services, if Park and Rec can provide them, that's where I feel comfortable getting into saying, yeah, 50,000 is a loan. We need some return on investment. I'm not sure the additional $50,000 is the bang for the buck for the library, that we just write the check and we're done.
well, the other one, you said they'll go somewhere else. I asked Nick, and they can't find another spot. And I did some calling to look for 1,000 to 2,000 feet, and it's not around, with a bathroom,
Yeah.
with bathroom facilities. That's very hard to find. The nearest one was over in Allenton,
Yeah, that one.
but I have some
That
questions
wouldn't be West
on.
Bend Park and Rec in
Nope.
Allenton.
Huh?
That wouldn't be
Yeah.
West Bend Park and Rec in Allenton.
Well, can I
The
ask some
location.
questions on your report here? Okay, first of all, when did this become the library recreation center project? This isn't, I didn't know we're assuming some ownership of this. This is for Park and Recs, isn't it? It's not library.
I mean, the library, or the Parks and Rec is what's prompting it, wouldn't say it's for Parks and Rec.
Because we will have usage of it when
Right.
they're not using
Right.
it. So it,
I think it's
And it's at our
partnership.
library.
I think it
Yeah.
is, when you talk about if you go long-term into phase 2, it allows us to
Right.
do, if we, phase 2 being that additional space remodeled down there. I think if we're gonna commit $100,000, or we did, I should say, not if, we committed $100,000, we're part of that project.
No, I'm not
This
saying
is
we're
a
not
joint
part of it.
venture.
But I don't like us seeing the library recreation center. If everybody else is fine with it, that's fine.
Are you in the actual
What would you-
legal verbiage, sorry,
I don't know.
I'm in my report.
or in the report?
In the report.
Okay, I was looking for the
No, no,
legal
no.
verbiage in the.
No, it's in
the-
her
Gotcha,
report.
okay.
Okay, okay, the staff has, these are supposedly
Ideas.
ideas, or supposedly advantages, or not. I mean, last meeting, we talked, I really didn't see any advantages. So, my first question on this, will these advantages cost any more money? As I go through each one of them, I don't see where they'll be free. They will either take additional staff, they'll take additional supplies, and that's money. And where's, oh, and you're agreeing
I'm
that.
agreeing with you.
Okay, so where's that money going to come from, since Chris, do you think the city's gonna give us more money next year? Because we have a dance studio down here now? So where's that extra money gonna come from? If you're gonna put on extra programs, you're gonna need extra staff, right?
No, the staff that's here will do the programs,
So why don't we do 3 programs at a time now?
because we don't have the space.
You don't have the space?
No,
So if you did 3 programs at a time, you do it with the existing staff in this building and downstairs, and no additional cost. We
I don't
would-
know if there would be additional costs or
Depends on
not.
the program.
It depends on the
If
program and who we
anybody's
get to
donated
help us
funding
with it.
for that, yeah.
But if you're gonna run 3 programs with the current staff, it's gonna drain on your staff. Be realistic. So it's gonna cost money. It's gonna either have overtime, or you're gonna have shortage of staff servicing the rest of the library. That's for multiple programs. Under the children, we have more open space, will allow for larger programs, working and describe stuff. That means more materials, which would mean some more dollars.
Possibly, but we are also looking at borrowing materials from Monarch because they just bought some technology sets for kids to work with. We could,
Would you be able to guarantee the board that if this went through and there would be no additional cost for materials or staff for any additional programs you put on next year because you've got the extra space? Could you guarantee that?
I can't guarantee that, no.
Okay, so no, that's what I'm saying, there's gonna be additional cost. Where is that cost gonna come from? It's gonna come from our reserve or from our other budget.
Or it'll come from the 5,000 that we're saving in snow removal.
So
No.
Doug, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here a little bit in the mission of our library and customer service. I get that, and I'm gonna take the staff out of it because in my mind, that's Amy and Brad's job to get creative with when people come in that day and everything else, so we don't run into OT and all those different types of things. So let's take that out, and I'm gonna pick on STEM because it's probably the one I can talk the most about with running. Are there gonna be some minor costs? Sure. But I also believe if we're trying to meet the needs of our community more and get more and more people here, we need to provide them with services. And services cost money, and yeah, we're not talking thousands of dollars in my mind here of things. You know, Monarch has some things already. I just feel like, you know, we always talk about the dollar and cents, but we're also talking about serving our community here and things that we want for our kids, for our adults, for whatever age range they are. And if we're going to provide value add, it may cost us a little bit upfront. And for me personally, I'm okay with some of those things, as long as we're not talking about more staff. Because when you have good things, finding somebody to fund a STEM night it's a buzzword, it's a little bit easier,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So I'm okay with that, as long as we're not talking about all of a sudden, if a proposal comes across the table that says we need to add and I'm gonna use event coordinator, it's completely the wrong term here, but just to tie it to the event, an event coordinator for all these different events, that's when I might get unhappy as a board member. But some of these little things, that's the library's staff and Amy and Brad to figure out how to fund within our current operations without increasing the
Okay,
budget.
so right now, though, we're seeing programs, increasing programs, and we've dropped some programs for the young people. The other question I have is, if this is so good for the community, why doesn't the city back it? And the city is saying, no, they can go to the YMCA.
It's our past administration.
But you're also talking about the rec part of it. I'm not talking about the rec part, I'm talking about what we offer here as services. And that's the city and the park and rec to figure out. I don't wanna get into that business. We'll lease them the space downstairs. Park and rec can have that argument with Chris and the other aldermen and so forth. I don't wanna get in the business of tying their success to our success. Cause if they aren't successful, we have zero control over that. That's my belief in it.
So is our mission to provide community services like these programs, or are we also to be providing the reading and the other materials that are part of the program, of our, our existence?
I would tell you
It's
both.
both.
Yeah.
When you look at where libraries are going today and that's
Right.
community hub, it's both.
It's an evolutionary process.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
I mean-
what we're evolving into,
Yeah.
community center.
multifaceted.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the transfer of knowledge, we had the conversation
Yeah.
about DVDs, you're
Right.
talking about transfer of knowledge in different ways.
Right.
I mean, people are looking for those types of things, and libraries are a great source of knowledge. It's just a different avenue other than reading a
It's
book
different transmission.
or,
Yeah.
watching a DVD in this case.
And then my question becomes one of, how do we afford it? We're giving away $150,000, so there goes our part of our reserve. Right now, we don't have these additional things, and our budget, we've had to cut back on potential reserve from next year. So how are we gonna pay for all this? And our budget is already strapped. We're already taking money out of our reserves almost every year to pay just to keep the existing system running. This all sounds good, but you gotta pay for it. And we're all missing that we have to pay for it.
Well,
Because the other thing we could do, this would be a what if, just take all of our reserves and spend it. Just spend it, and then just see where we're gonna go the next year. And how much assistance are we gonna get from the city, from the county, because we're gonna need to cover costs.
But I think, like was being said, it's an evolving thing. One of the things, I just lost my train of thought though. Not that we are, in the past several years, or in the past 2 years, I would say, we've actually started to work with the city. So things like the CIP program, the capital, we are now getting it into the budget of the city the way it should have
That's
been.
what I was gonna
Years
say.
ago, years past, we didn't have that, and we didn't have the capital money coming in to do a match. So it all has to do with planning, and we're planning farther out. We have a plan in with the city to put it in for the leaks, the piping. We also have a plan to be put in with the city for the roof. So we're working with the city. And I know that we have seen more cooperation than, in the past few years, we've seen more cooperation working with us. So it's not like we're gonna be an island unto ourselves, saving all this money so we can pay for all these things. We are a department of the city, or a portion, we are a department, city department. So that working with them kind of is how we will pay for things in the future.
Okay.
And I think, look at it this way, and I like to crunch numbers, so if we sign it, and this is a lot of what ifs, but if we sign a 10-year deal with them, and let's say we're budgeting 5 for snow, so I'm gonna assume 5 for lawn. So that's $10,000 a year we aren't paying for over a 10-year deal, it's $100,000. There's $100,000 back. So after 10 years, the Park and Rec decides we want out. Well, they aren't taking the walls down. So if they take a toilet with, we'll buy a new toilet or whatever else. But, we still have access to that space down there too. When I look on the return on investment and the ability, and it's really an investment, that's where I really need to see the savings up front for some of these other things, because those are long-term savings. We're not talking about just paying the $50,000 back. It's over the term of this that This is what's making it beneficial for us to put the $100,000 in, to loan the $50,000, and to potentially look at a little bit of a lower per monthly rate, knowing we're not expending in other dollars at that point. And so if you just crunch the numbers, I mean, it's not a, I mean, if we wanted to space all it ourselves, we'd be paying a heck of a lot more money. You know, and then it really would go unused, because we probably would need staff to staff it all day long at that point. We're not gonna use it every single day.
Well,
Or Park and Rec can.
are we looking at then honoring this request of them that we do not lend them 50,000, but we give them an additional 50,000? Is that the board's feeling?
Well, we're not gonna vote on that today. We voted on, what
What
we
we voted
voted
on.
on has been voted for us to go out for a bid. The next thing that's coming in will be when we get the bids and see this. So the 50,000 is something we still have to keep talking about, with the idea that if Park and Recs will be doing snow removal and lawn, that is a huge savings to us on our budget that can be used for other expenditures such as material.
Well, then the draft of this lease agreement should reflect
It's,
that it's 100,000 that they would be getting from the library and a $50,000 loan.
No, I think you actually have to come up with two
Second one,
documents
yeah.
legally.
Okay.
I'd make the lease about the lease and the utilities and everything else, and if we're gonna enter into agreement, you know, the snow plowing and the lawn can go as part of this, but if all of a sudden now we're going to say, you know, this $50,000 is in play, they need that, and in kind, they're gonna do X, we gotta then separate it out at
Yes.
that point in time.
Okay.
You know, I think the other thing is when we look at this is when we do a long-term lease, we have to have the ability to reflect and look at utility costs
Going up.
within the 10-year period. So we're either building inflation in, or it's every 3 years, you're looking at what is that estimate based upon the last 2 years' bills or whatever else. You're taking a real weird chance on paying the utilities. You may win some years, you may not.
Right.
And when you don't win big, or when you don't win, it's usually, you're not winning big, so you're losing a lot. But
If
that
we
would be
have,
part
say,
of
like
it.
a lease agreement and a services agreement, which would cover.
I think the hard part is really this isn't, it's a lease agreement, but the only payment they're paying for is utilities. We're paying the utilities and saying, we think it'll cost this much to run the basement. And so you know, without an ability to adjust it, you're right, they're really paying for the services of it. Because once it's built, they're upkeeping it, they're keeping it clean, that's the ongoing pieces of it. They have to manage their stuff if, you know, the way I read it correctly, I believe, you know, somebody wrecks the wall, they're coming in and fixing it. They have to leave it just as nice when they leave after that lease agreement is done. We're just trying to make sure that we're covering our own budgetary needs on the services that go along
Yeah, the
with it.
services agreement could cover that $50,000, to cover the contracting, the snow plowing, whatever, over the 10-year period also.
so this was really been a discussion on our understanding. We really will not be voting or anything. We will be
Right.
going, putting it on the next one, but
Yeah, these are
it's
just things
making
to add.
the board aware
And
of what is
Can
going
I ask what
on.
we would be voting on in the next place? Like, I don't,
After the bids come in.
after the bids come
So
in.
about March.
And that's when we're talking about the actual lease agreement at that point, okay?
Yeah, because before the bid, I think, is accepted, we would need to then have a firm lease agreement and a firm agreement on snow removal, lawn,
That makes sense.
those types of
Whatever.
things, yeah.
And I have another question. What if the bid, I have two questions. What if the bid,
You said one, Doug, come on.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's all.
what
You
if
can
the
hold me to
bid
that,
comes
too.
in higher and more money is needed? Then what do we do?
I think personally, then we
Then
reconvene
we
that
walk
small
away,
group,
yeah.
and you problem solve. Either A, is it worth it? Is that the cost of construction right now, or whatever else? Are there things that can be reduced? I think you have to look at it and respond. We
Okay.
can't go and do it, oh, it came in 20,000 over, or 5,000 over, or whatever it is, we're done. The reality is for Park and Rec, they still need a place to go. They need to drive that conversation then with us kind of on this side. It's really their conversation first.
So we are not going to put a cap on how much.
We did put a cap.
We
We
did,
have.
100,000.
If it would come back high and there'd be a more discussion, we of course would have to be involved in, the board would have to vote whether or not they want to give additional funding.
Or Park
We,
and Rec folks.
or Park and Rec would have to do
Okay.
it, okay?
And that could
'Cause-
be a give, that
As
could be
long as-
in-kind
as long as we're
services, that could
understanding
be.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, then I have another. What about the 50,000 from,
Don't you beat me.
early risers?
I'll tell you after February 13th, when we do our final vote.
Okay, so we don't know for sure yet.
Right.
It-
I mean, I can tell you
It's
it's gonna
anticipated,
pass,
yeah.
but
Okay. As well as you did last time, okay.
I'm confident in it, but we have an official final vote on
Okay.
February 13th.
Okay,
Good thing nobody watches our videos.
Which really, I mean, based on what the numbers for phase one, that we'd be at phase one. It'd be 150, 150, 50, and we'd be good for phase one. And then this will be kind of like a foundational funding, so that hopefully other people start to kind of trickle in and say, hey, I want to donate to this project too, so.
Sounds good.
Naming rights.
okay.
One last
Okay,
thing, Doug, just one last thing.
Yeah.
Remember this. We got that basement cleaned out for $0.
Yes.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
There's a cost savings right there, already set.
And you know what that basement looked like.
That took a long time to get done.
Yeah, it was done in how fast?
It was
Hours.
fast,
Yeah.
yeah,
Didn't cost us a dime.
yeah.
That
That
So,
is.
well, it didn't cost us anything to put the stuff down there either, so it took care of our own
You
garbage.
would have contracted for it, Doug?
Yeah.
Would have been.
Look at that invoice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a lot,
You know what? What ifs
a lot of it.
Amy,
don't count.
is there any urgency by the city to be out of Mutual Mall yet? It was not an
I
issue
have not-
the last time
I
we met
have
as that
not
small
heard.
group?
I
I've been
don't,
Chris,
waiting
do you know?
I've been waiting to hear.
Okay,
have
so
not
I
heard.
just,
Signed too.
yeah, I mean, there's always that, there was always that worry about somebody got to fast track
Well,
something.
they don't have one yet.
quick trip.
Then we're in the, sounds like we're in the same.
Nothing I
boat.
can tell you about.
Okay,
Pretty much
All
about
right.
where we were the last time.
Yeah.
We won't be able to decide what it's going to
Okay, we
be.
just discussed
We're moving
it.
on to new business number 9, the Dale Carnegie course funding approval. This was the course that Chris had brought to us and we had talked about. The only difference on this is the original one that Chris had brought was on like 8 Thursday nights. And that would be Amy driving, and I was not comfortable with her driving at night to Oshkosh or
Fond du Lac.
Fond du Lac. So she checked into another one that was during the daytime, a 3-day course over a
3
couple weeks. And Chris has helped secure this same type of funding or discount. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
So we need to look for an approval of that training and also to look at where we would like the dollars to come. How much is in your training budget? How much was in your training budget for you?
this would spend it all,
Okay,
and that's a concern I have, that we'll take out every dime that we have for
Continuing
training,
education.
which was also intended to cover potentially any staff.
That
to
was
get
my
trained.
concern as well.
What's in there now? In the,
Pardon me?
what's in that fund right, that is budgeted for that now?
2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
I just think this is it's a little pricey. And the intent of that money, as I say, was not for just one person. Because there will also be expenses going back and forth and potentially meals, which is fine. You know, but that will pretty well wipe out the $2,000. And I'm just wondering, do we have another leadership training type of experience for Amy that is available? Because you had something last year, I think?
Yes, I did. I went to the WLA Leadership
Right.
Academy.
That was that anywhere near this cost?
No, it was 800.
Yeah. So
Or
this-
actually, no, the cost of the training itself was covered by the system because I gave a system report,
Okay.
but we had to pay for hotel and travel expenses.
So I'm just wondering, it's not that I'm against continuing education. I just can't see us spending all the money.
I don't know, I'm sorry, I disagree. I think the long-term benefits for Amy and for the library are gonna be worth it. I think there's a cost benefit to this.
I
with
think
anything.
in our evaluation meeting, we had discussed potentially using library board monies to cover it. We said
That
we were
was a
willing.
closed session,
It was,
you can't
But-
discuss it now.
well. Okay, fine, then I guess I would propose to at least cover half the costs with the library board's unrestricted reserves, or, well, account.
Well, after looking at the program itself, I think if she were to go, we would probably lose her to the Iowa caucus after she comes back.
I think one of the things that this means is we need to really think about putting more money next year into our training budgets. I'm not sure how, from a projectile of what was spent last year, are we projecting a greater savings or money to be transferred? How did we come budget-wise?
In that line, we spent it all.
No, I'm talking overall. Overall, last year's budget, how much money do you feel will be transferred over?
I'm not sure because I haven't seen the final journal entries yet.
But,
You're already spending some of that.
well, some of that is going to the next year's
Materials.
materials
Right.
budget.
Right.
But I'm wondering, do you have any feel?
Was it about 40,000 when we looked at
Yeah, possibly,
it? And
but
that
it
was mostly
might not
payroll
be that
savings.
much. I'm not exactly sure. It's
And
hard
how
to
much was the
say.
difference in the budget for this year that we ended up passing? How much were we negative that we needed to fill?
It was like 20
20.
Okay, so roughly you have 20K, maybe?
That maybe would
Maybe.
be carried over from
Maybe,
last
but I was
year.
hoping to inject some of that money into the emergency line too, so,
We've already got hand, you know,
You got your hand, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
It's up
what
to
are
the
some
board.
of the other feelings?
Maybe the early risers could sponsor. I might know someone.
No,
well, is there some other course, training, that may give us the equivalency of this one course and not be as expensive? Within the system, outside of the system?
I have not seen one inside of the system yet. Don't know.
what
one-
about the Gale courses?
Oh, the game.
That's a good way to work on interpersonal skills by staring in
By
front of a
yourself,
screen.
yeah, by yourself in front of the computer, talk to it, get mad, yell at it.
I guess.
Do you have anybody else on the staff that wants to go to any other continuing education that you kind of want to budget for them?
Yes, WLA.
Okay, and how much
Conference.
is that?
It's depending on if they stay for the day or for the whole conference. A day is usually a couple $100. The whole conference, then you're talking about lodging fees and all of that, so it's a lot more.
And that would be for another staff person.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we,
Usually the budget covers me, myself, and one other staff person to go to
if
WLA.
we budget that, and like you said, it's gonna take up most of that budget, then we really are not gonna have enough money maybe to send another staff person to
Right.
continue that.
Right.
So,
So somebody brought up the system, and this is a way out there, and I don't know enough details, but we can't be the only library board having this conversation. And is there any responsibility or support from the system to offer, and maybe it's not exactly this, but some sort of, and I'm not saying we don't necessarily have to pay for it either, professional development opportunities for library directors?
Yes, they are statutorily, they have to offer that.
Can you
And
suggest, and maybe it's not this, but these are the things that library directors are looking for. I just,
I
yeah,
can
because if
definitely
we're
suggest
having the conversation, somebody else is thinking it, or they're having that
Yeah.
conversation or somewhere else. Can the system put on a day or 2 days, and then you have a little bit of a scale of economy where, they're bringing in somebody to lead that professional development out. I don't know that, I don't know how that process would work of recommending it and all of that and how fast that
But
would
I
go.
think that would be a very good topic for Monarch to take a look at, because we've got 33 directors.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
I equate it to some of the things we do in education, you know, I mean,
Right.
I belong to a technology directors network
Yeah.
through our CISA. I was actually at our meeting today, and that's my professional development. That's a better deal than other thing, you know, and so what is it that the system can offer, and can we push back and say, here's a recommended idea, and if there's additional cost, it is what it is. And maybe it's even this, just for 33 library directors, not one.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. I think, Amy, you could check into
I can
that with
check
the
into that.
system, and we will how about if we table
Table
the
this.
Dale
And if they block it,
Carnegie?
it doesn't mean we can't come back to this conversation
No.
in
Right.
February again,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, because it starts March 24th, right? So we
Yeah,
have
and,
Right.
and might be more coming through the year.
Yeah, through
in-
the year,
in-
there
in-
might be more
yeah,
sessions.
I really hate to see other people not be able to go continuing that.
Right.
Within our budget.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, number 9, new business B, library director's evaluation policy. This came up from last month when there was a motion, or not a motion, in the discussion, the thought of having 2 people in Amy's appraisal came up for discussion, and I wanted to put this on the agenda. I will tell you, the policy, Amy put together a policy based on what she thought the board had wanted, but I will give you my impression. I have been in business for many years. I've had appraisals. I've never had more than my boss or one person in. I think if we go to 2 people from the board, it's gonna be a problem because of the fact getting the people at the time when Amy is at work, to come in for the appraisal. I think it's inconvenient, and I also think that having 2 board members sitting in an appraisal looks like we're beating up on one person. If the appraisal
If it's
is,
bad, then yeah.
if it's bad, then I would say we should have 2. But I don't think on a regular basis you should have 2 people in an appraisal. That's my personal opinion. The board can vote on this, but I'll just throw this out. How many of you have ever been in an appraisal where you've had more than one person? So you have, huh?
Yep.
And it's tending to get that way more and more, primarily because of litigation. I contacted a friend of mine that's a human resources consultant, and he said it's becoming more and more recommended, especially the higher you get, because it's he said, she said, and all of a sudden we're suing. And if that then warrants that the person being interviewed wants a witness, that is then approved also. But I think we should have 2 people, especially for the director. It also precludes the possibility of a skewed presentation
Me giving.
by you,
Yeah,
as
Of course.
opposed to what the board may have really intended.
but the board does have the authority to go to
What?
the human resources. Any one of you can go and ask to
No,
see.
what I'm
her
saying is,
appraisal.
that your review is based upon what was written.
Yes.
What was written is what gets filed. The discussion isn't recorded or put down anywhere. So there is no tendency, or there is no, I don't have the right word, guardian to prevent the library board director from skewing the conversation. And this could be an example. You know, the board says you should be doing this, but you know, really, I think you're doing a good job. That type of thing would be prevented. So that what the board.
So I'm sorry if you wanna go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, she could say that, the written record's the written record to me, I think that's what's gonna cover your butt. in
So,
a
so when I,
situation.
so when I think of that, I was going that
Yeah.
same route. I think the other part is, as a board, if we have that big enough concern, then we should be in closed session and having that as a conversation with Amy. If we're really, if we want to have a conversation of how things are going on evaluation, nothing stops us from having Amy in that room at that point. If that's, I mean, and I get it, you're trying to prevent all of those things, and that's a board, and that's a hierarchy and a trust thing. If we have a board, as a board, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but nobody could stop us from saying, we should have a closed session and talk about this. And then we're all there, because maybe I don't trust any of you, and maybe you don't trust me. I mean, I'm just trying to throw that out there, like, where does it stop? Because now it's you two doing it, and the next time it's you three, and all of a sudden now we're posting for
And
a
then it's the whole
meeting.
board.
And that's where I just wonder of the, yeah, and then there's the whole side, well, that's what's written. 2 years later, Amy can say whatever she, well, Deb said this, prove it.
Valid point.
You know,
very
I mean,
valid.
and again, it is still, it was delivered by a supervisor in that sense. And I think, and I don't know what the city's policies are on delivering evaluations and everything else. I think we just have to be very clear here that we're looking at one employee of many in this building also. Are we modeling what we want Amy and Brad and every other supervisor here to turn around and do with their employees also? I mean, if we really have that much of a concern, then really it should be all of us sitting in the room in a closed session. That's just my personal take on it.
Well, I proposed it last month, because I remember Deb, you and I together interviewed,
Sue Cantrell in
Sue
her exit
Cantrell, but that was
interview.
an exit interview. And if we don't wanna do it, that's fine. I mean, I brought it up, and if we don't wanna do it, I'm not carrying a blazing torch saying we have to have 2 people.
One of the things to keep in mind, from the time we finalize the proposal or the evaluation, which is like the 3rd week in November, the appraisal has to be given technically by before December 1st and given to the city. So it's a time constraint. Getting several people or 2 people together might be a problem. But I like your idea. If you're gonna do 2, we might as well do the whole board. And we can have a closed session at night.
And I wasn't here for the conversation last month, so
No.
I'm picking up some of
Oh,
those
it-
pieces of the why and everything else. I just, you know, if either positive or negative, if we really have that big of a concern, then nothing would stop us from having the closed session, agreeing on what's in the thing, and then coming back and saying, okay, we're gonna have a conversation about this now. And it's the whole board sitting there. It's not the board to beat up on Amy or one versus many. It's just, we're all representative of each other. And to your point, Doug, if one person goes off, one person is not that person for the, they aren't, you know, I'm a single member here. I can't come in and direct Amy to do anything. I have no power for that. Same thing through the evaluation process.
Well, do we wanna vote on it, or just drop it?
Somebody wanna make a
All right,
motion?
somebody wanna make a motion to drop it or vote it?
I'll make
It
a
would be a
motion to
motion
drop
to do
it.
it.
Pardon me?
You wouldn't need a
Wouldn't
motion then.
motion to drop.
Just,
There's just-
If you're not
just drop it?
Yeah, we gave a motion.
We'll just ignore
Go
it.
forward.
Yeah, so you don't
Okay.
need a motion.
Discussion and,
Discussion ended.
Yeah,
discussion and, yeah,
Just discussion, yeah.
discussion.
Can I, and I don't know if I can do this because it's not on the agenda, can I ask a follow-up question on policies? So,
Sure.
Because we have a fair more policies by us and everything else, and I happen to click through and there's policies from like 2008 and different things. Is it ever been the board's practice to review policies on a, not necessarily a cycle, but regular basis?
we did.
And
once.
only because I'm doing
We
this
did
at work, we have a
yeah.
cycle like this.
We did it once,
Okay.
probably
When I started.
4 or 5 years ago.
When I started going through policies, and I did it for about a year.
And as things change, we do the policies, because like the art exhibit, remember when we had
Yep.
the complaint
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that? So, but that might be something to do on a
5-year, 3-year,
3-year basis or 5 years to start looking at policies for
doing that in another
review.
group. Have somebody doing that right now, that this stuff's
It-
5 years old, let's.
And I think part of it is in my ask is it's sounds like some of them were reviewed, but never updated that they were reviewed on a date. I'm looking at the one for proctoring exams, if this is truly a policy, there's no date when it went into play, when it was
Okay.
last reviewed, just, so if somebody questions it and says, well, boy, Doug, in, 2012, you guys reviewed this, but according to your public document, it doesn't say you actually adjusted it. Those, again.
No, this is the
so-
point that, I have made the point that when we do our policies, we should say on each
Yep.
policy
When it was
when it was
updated.
reviewed, and that fell through.
And we also said, highlight what was changed, because you have a policy and you don't highlight the changes, so you're thinking, okay, it was revised in this, but what was revised?
We do that in our ISO manual,
Huh?
in the ISO manual. Right? Yes.
Whatever,
Exactly.
whatever is the current, but then there's the long term of, this was the policy from 2008 till 2012, and then the board revised it in January of 2013. Well, the new revision goes on the website, but there is that historical to it, and just having those dates on there. When one says 2008, but it sounds like you reviewed them, I couldn't tell that from.
Right, because we didn't
website
put a
at
date
that
on
point.
them.
Yeah. Those would just be an ask and a suggestion to come forward in the future.
Put on the future agenda.
Oh, yeah, future agenda, policy reviews. All right, our next regular meeting date will be February 18th. Ooh.
So I was just gonna check like I do every time. That's an election day. Do we want to keep it on that date?
Well, I'll be gone too.
Oh,
Because I won't be here. If you do
No.
it on the election day, I won't be here, because I'll be
Oh.
working.
but if we made it, we'd have to make it the 25th, because we have to have time, because the board has to approve the document that goes to the state,
This
uh,
annual report.
annual report.
Yep.
So,
Then I'll have to be back.
yes, and you'll have to come, and you'll have to tell us about your vacation. How does the 25th look for people? February 25th?
Don't know.
It's fine for me.
Yes. Okay.
Works for me.
It's okay here.
Okay, okay. Doug, you can get back?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's all right,
I know you're not golfing,
no. But,
but,
I will not make the March meeting,
okay,
I'll be in Florida.
okay. So,
So we're gonna move it.
yeah, we'll do it February 25th. I think we did that last year. I think we did that last year, the same thing, because of the
Yeah.
election.
It's
Because we
like-
were real
It's like
close to
2 elections a
getting-
year where it lines up.
Yeah,
Is that
because we were
right? Yeah.
getting real close to getting that annual report
Yeah.
signed and sent in.
Yeah.
All right, signed task review.
So I only have Amy. Find out who pays for the sprinkler system if it breaks before we get it fixed. Look into other training programs that could be a bit cheaper. And maybe future agenda item is policy reviews.
Okay.
And bring back all the lease agreement ideas.
Yeah, and if anybody has any other ideas for lease agreement, send them to
Yep.
Amy.
Email me.
Okay.
Good.
On
That's
that,
mine.
I just missed that one part.
on that happy note, we are adjourned.
Did I beat you guys before you got together?
Yeah.
Okay, because I
2, 3.
Seven.
kept putting it off.
Seven.
I just stumped